The sound of their laughter still echoes in my head, light, effortless, like the sound of two young girls who believe the world is kind. I remember standing in the kitchen, my hands still wet from washing dishes, when I heard the front door swing open. "Mom," Emily called out, her voice full of that teenage excitement I hadn't heard in a while. "This is Zoe. She's the friend I told you about." Zoe. That name alone made something cold slide down my spine. I turned, a smile half formed on my face, and then froze. The girl standing beside my daughter wasn't just anyone. She was her. Older, thinner, her once glossy hair now a muted brown. But those eyes, those same sharp, deliberate eyes, I could never forget them. I had seen them years ago across a dim restaurant table, right before my husband confessed everything. For a second, time folded in on itself. I wasn't standing in my kitchen anymore. I was back in that night, 6 years ago, the night my world tilted. "Mom." Emily laughed nervously. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I blinked, forcing air into my lungs, and smiled. "Oh no, honey. I just thought your friend looked familiar." Zoe smiled politely, her lips curving just enough to look sweet. But her eyes knew. There was recognition there, faint but undeniable. She knew who I was too. Before that day, our life had finally started to feel peaceful again. After the divorce, it took me years to rebuild something close to normal for Emily and me. We had our routines, quiet dinners, movie nights with popcorn and old blankets, Sunday morning pancakes. I worked as an interior designer from home, which meant I was always there when she came back from school, always ready to listen to whatever teenage drama she was tangled in that week. Our home smelled like vanilla candles and coffee most days. Simple comforts that made me feel grounded. And for the first time in years, Emily seemed happy again. She was 16 now, bright and independent, but still soft in the way I loved. She'd leave handwritten notes on the fridge when she stayed late for art club, or bring me flowers from the school garden just because. When she started mentioning a new friend named Zoe, I didn't think much of it. She talked about her constantly, how smart she was, how funny, how she just got her. I was glad she had someone like that. Emily had struggled with loneliness after the divorce, often caught between her father's inconsistent visits and the whispers of kids at school. So when Zoe first entered our lives, I wanted to believe it was a good thing. A mother always wants her child to have someone, a confidant, a light. But that night, when I saw Zoe's face and recognized her as the other woman from my past, that fragile sense of peace cracked open like glass. They sat together in the living room, sprawled across the couch, giggling over something on Emily's phone. I stayed in the kitchen, trying to steady myself with small motions, setting out glasses, pouring juice, forcing my shaking hands to look natural. Zoe's voice carried easily, low and confident, a little too self-assured for a teenager. And when she laughed, I could hear that same lilting note from years ago, the one I'd heard when I stood outside that restaurant window, watching my husband hold her hand across the table. My husband, Daniel. We'd been married for 15 years. The betrayal had been quiet, stretched out over months, business trips that went longer than usual, phone calls he took in the car, the faint smell of someone else's perfume on his shirts. When the truth came out, it was Zoe, a young woman he'd met at a corporate retreat. She'd been 24 back then. I remember her smirk the day I confronted her, the way she didn't even deny it. She'd said, "If he were really yours, he wouldn't be with me." Those words had burned in me for years. And now here she was sitting next to my daughter. I couldn't make sense of it. How did Zoe end up at Emily's school? Why now, after all these years? Later that evening, after Zoe had gone home, I found Emily in her room, humming softly as she texted. "So," I began carefully, "Zoe seems nice. How long have you two known each other?" She smiled. "A few weeks. She just transferred from another school. We clicked instantly, Mom, like instantly." Her eyes sparkled, her face glowing with the warmth only a teenager can have when she feels truly seen. "She's been through some stuff though," Emily added softly. "Her mom passed away a few years ago, and she doesn't talk much about her family. But I think she's trying to start over." I nodded slowly, my heart twisting. A part of me wanted to believe that maybe Zoe had changed, that she wasn't here to hurt us. But the timing, the familiarity. It all felt too calculated. That night, after Emily went to bed, I sat alone in the living room with the lights dimmed. The house was quiet except for the distant hum of the refrigerator. On the mantel sat a single framed photo, Emily, Daniel, and me, from a time when we were still a family. I stared at it for a long while, tracing Daniel's face with my eyes, remembering how easily love can turn into a scar. I thought I'd buried that part of my life. The betrayal, the humiliation, the bitterness. But seeing Zoe again ripped it all open. I whispered to myself, "What are you doing here, Zoe?" Because deep down, I knew this wasn't a coincidence. A few days later, I saw her again. Emily had invited Zoe to study at our house after school. When I opened the door, Zoe greeted me with a smile. Polite, charming even. "Hi, Mrs. Carter," she said, her tone sweet but steady. "It's nice to see you again." Again. The word hit me like a slap. So she did remember. And she wasn't pretending otherwise. I forced a smile. "Yes, nice to see you too." Our eyes locked for a moment. A silent acknowledgement of everything unspoken between us. Emily was oblivious, chattering about school projects, her laughter filling the room. But beneath that innocent noise, a quiet war had begun. That night, after Zoe left, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every detail. Her tone, her look, that deliberate choice of words. Something in me whispered, "She's back for a reason." And somehow my daughter was right in the middle of it. For the next few weeks, Zoe became a regular presence in our home. She slipped into our lives with the kind of grace only someone practiced in manipulation could manage. Polite to me, affectionate toward Emily, helpful around the house. It was almost too perfect. Every time I'd hear her laugh echo down the hallway, or see her sitting cross-legged on Emily's bed, sketching something in that little leather notebook she always carried, I'd feel the same quiet unease curling in my stomach. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe she'd changed. Maybe she wasn't here for me at all. But that theory began to crumble the night I overheard them talking. It was a Thursday evening. I was in the kitchen making lasagna, Emily's favorite, when I realized I'd left my phone upstairs. As I passed her room, I heard Zoe's voice through the cracked door. "Do you ever feel like your mom hides things from you?" she asked, her tone soft, deliberate. Emily laughed. "Every mom does, I guess. She's super private." Zoe hummed. "Still, don't you ever wonder what really happened between your parents?" I froze. Emily hesitated. "I mean, they just grew apart, I think. That's what Mom said. Dad cheated and she left. It's over now." Zoe's voice dropped quieter, but I could still hear it. What if it's not over for him? Something in her tone, that tiny note of suggestion, made my hands go cold. Emily laughed again, uneasy this time. "I don't think Mom even talks to him anymore." Zoe chuckled lightly. "You'd be surprised what adults hide, Em. Sometimes. The people who act the strongest are just protecting a secret." I didn't hear the rest because my heart was pounding too loudly in my ears. I stepped back, trying not to make a sound, my throat tight. Why would she bring that up? Why plant that kind of doubt in my daughter's head? That was when it hit me. Zoe wasn't here by coincidence. She had a plan. Later that night, I sat by the window in my room, watching the soft rain blur the streetlights outside. I could feel the old anger rising in me again. That same helpless fury I'd felt when I learned about her years ago. But this time, it wasn't about Daniel. It was about Emily. Zoe was trying to get close to my daughter. To me. And if there was one thing I knew about her, it was that she never did anything without a reason. The next day, I decided to learn more. After Emily left for school, I opened my laptop and searched her school's public directory. No student by the name of Zoe Matthews was listed. That was strange. Emily had said she was new, but surely the school records would reflect that. Then I tried Facebook. There she was, the same bright-eyed girl, a few mutual friends with my daughter. But when I scrolled further down her page, something caught my eye. A photo from 2 years ago. Zoe standing in front of a corporate event banner. The same company Daniel still worked for. My stomach dropped. So that's how she found us. That evening, I asked Emily to invite Zoe over for dinner. If Zoe wanted to play games, I'd look her in the eye this time. She arrived with her usual smile, a small bouquet of flowers in her hand. "For you, Mrs. Carter," she said sweetly. I took them, smiling back just enough to be polite. "That's thoughtful of you, Zoe." We sat around the table, Emily talking about school projects, me nodding, and Zoe occasionally chiming in with perfectly measured charm. But beneath it, the tension was thick. I could feel her watching me, studying me the way someone does when they're waiting for a reaction. At one point, she mentioned Daniel casually, as if testing the air. "Emily told me your dad works in finance? That must have been stressful for you both back then." The fork slipped from my hand, clattering against the plate. Emily looked up, startled. "Mom, you okay?" I smiled faintly. "Just tired, honey. Long day." But Zoe's gaze lingered, sharp and knowing. And in that small smirk that touched her lips, I saw it, confirmation. She remembered everything. After dinner, when Emily went upstairs, Zoe stayed behind to help me with the dishes. The silence stretched between us like glass. "Finally," I said quietly, "you've grown up." Zoe's hands didn't stop moving. "I suppose I have. Last time I saw you," I continued, "you were sitting across from my husband at a restaurant in Charleston." She paused, just for a fraction of a second, before turning to face me. Her expression was calm. "I wondered if you'd recognize me." My voice stayed low, but it trembled with the weight of years. "What are you doing here, Zoe? Why are you involving my daughter?" She tilted her head slightly, the faintest glint in her eyes. "Involving? I'm her friend. You think the world still revolves around your broken marriage?" I swallowed hard. "You don't belong in her life. Stay away from her." She smiled, that same dangerous, knowing smile I'd once seen when she thought she'd won. "I'm not here for Daniel," she said softly. "I'm here for you." I felt my pulse hammering in my throat. "For me." She leaned in slightly, her voice almost a whisper. "You ruined my life once, Mrs. Carter. I lost everything because of you. Now, I just want you to feel what it's like to watch someone you love slip away, slowly." Then she dried her hands, placed the towel neatly on the counter, and walked out, calm, composed, victorious. When the door closed behind her, I stood frozen, my hands trembling, the air heavy with something I couldn't name. Fear, guilt, fury, all tangled together. I had always told myself that what happened between Daniel and Zoe was over. But clearly for her it never was. And now, my daughter was the piece she planned to use against me. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched over Emily as she slept, the soft rise and fall of her chest under the blanket, her hair spread across the pillow like a halo. I whispered a promise into the dark. "You will not touch her again." Because whatever game Zoe was playing, I was going to end it before she destroyed my daughter the way she almost destroyed me. The next morning, I woke up with a pit in my stomach and a single thought in my head. Zoe wasn't finished. She had said she wanted me to feel something, to lose something, the way she once did. But how? What was her plan? I kept my distance over the next week, hoping Zoe would lose interest, but instead, she grew even closer to Emily. They studied together, spent weekends at each other's houses, and posted photos online that made them look inseparable. Every picture made my chest ache, not because I was jealous, but because I knew the smiling girl beside my daughter had already stolen enough from me once. And this time, she was coming for my peace. One evening, I heard the front door slam. Emily stormed in, her face red and tear-streaked. "What happened?" I asked, rushing to her. She threw her backpack onto the couch. "You lied to me." My body went cold. "What are you talking about?" "Zoe told me everything," she snapped. "She told me you destroyed her family, that you had her father fired, that you made everyone think she was some kind of homewrecker." Her words hit me like stones. "That's not true, Emily." She was your husband's girlfriend, right?" Emily interrupted, her voice shaking. "She told me you went to his company and made a scene, that you embarrassed her in front of everyone." My breath caught in my throat. "She's twisting it, honey. She was an adult woman who had an affair with your father." "Stop," Emily shouted. "You always act like the victim. Maybe that's why Dad left in the first place." Silence. Just that sharp, hollow silence that cuts deeper than any scream. She ran upstairs, slamming her door so hard the frame rattled. I stood there, staring at the staircase, the echo of her words still ringing in my ears. Maybe that's why Dad left. That night, I cried quietly into my hands. Not the way I used to, with anger or bitterness, but with the kind of grief only a mother knows when her child turns away from her. Zoe had won the first round. The next day, I drove to Daniel's office. He hadn't seen Zoe in years, or so he said when I told him about her being back. His face went pale. Zoe, here? With Emily. He leaned forward, his voice low. I haven't heard from her since that night. She threatened to tell you before I did. I thought she moved away. She didn't, I said. She's back and she's filling our daughter's head with lies. Daniel rubbed his temples, guilt flickering across his face. I'll talk to her. No, I said firmly. If you talk to her, she'll twist it again. This isn't about you anymore. It's about our daughter. He sighed. Then what do you want to do? I stared out his office window, at the city skyline, gray and cold. I want the truth to come out. All of it. On my terms. That weekend, I asked Emily to invite Zoe for dinner again. She hesitated, still cold toward me, but eventually agreed. Fine, she muttered. But don't start anything. I smiled softly. I won't. But I knew exactly what I was doing. When Zoe walked in that evening, she looked confident, smug even. She wore a soft blue sweater, and that same sly smile that used to make my stomach turn. We sat at the table, Emily beside Zoe, arms folded, eyes wary. Halfway through dinner, I placed my fork down and said quietly, Zoe, do you mind if we talk about the past? Emily's head snapped up. Mom, don't. It's okay, Zoe said sweetly. I don't mind. Maybe it's time the truth came out. Good, I said, my voice steady. Because I think Emily deserves to know who she's been letting into her life. Zoe tilted her head. By all means, tell her your version. I nodded slowly. 6 years ago, your father had an affair, I said to Emily, keeping my tone calm. It was the hardest time of my life. I found out by accident, when I saw him at a restaurant, holding hands with this woman. Zoe smiled faintly. You followed him. I found him, I corrected. And you weren't some innocent woman caught in a marriage's downfall, Zoe. You were part of it. Emily looked between us, eyes wide. Is that true? Zoe's smile didn't falter. I loved him, she said softly. But your mother couldn't handle that someone else did too. She made sure I lost my job, my reputation, everything. She told everyone I was a homewrecker. And maybe I was. But I was also human. Her voice trembled, perfectly measured, like a practiced confession. I almost believed it myself, if I didn't know better. But I was ready for her. Because earlier that day, I had gone to Daniel. And Daniel had written a letter. Without breaking eye contact, I reached into the drawer beside me and slid a folded paper across the table. Zoe's eyes flickered just for a second. Daniel wrote this, I said softly. He wanted Emily to know the truth, all of it. Emily hesitated, then picked it up, unfolding it carefully. Her eyes scanned the words. It was short, direct, brutally honest. Emily, years ago, I made a terrible mistake. I betrayed your mother with someone I should never have trusted. Zoe wasn't innocent. She knew I was married, and when I ended it, she threatened to expose everything if I didn't leave your mother. I lost my job because of her lies. Your mother didn't destroy her life. She just refused to let her destroy ours. Dad. The room went still. Emily's hand trembled as she lowered the paper. Is this true? She whispered. Zoe's smile faded. For the first time she looked cornered. He's lying, she said, her voice breaking slightly. He's trying to make himself look like the victim. But Emily was already staring at her differently, the innocence gone, replaced by something sharper. I saw your messages, Emily said quietly. You told me she ruined you. But you never said why. You made it sound like she was some monster. Zoe stood up abruptly. I was trying to help you see the truth. No, Emily said, her voice trembling. You were trying to hurt her. Through me. Zoe's jaw tightened, her mask slipping. She took everything from me. Do you have any idea what it's like to be treated like trash because of one mistake? She humiliated me. I met her gaze evenly. You humiliated yourself, Zoe. And now you're trying to do it to a child. Zoe's chest rose and fell fast. Then she grabbed her bag, eyes glistening. You'll regret this, she hissed. Maybe, I said softly. But not as much as you already do. She left without another word, the door slamming behind her. Emily didn't speak for a long time after that. She just sat there, staring at the folded letter on the table. Then finally she whispered, I'm sorry, Mom. I reached across the table and took her hand. It's not your fault, honey. You just trusted the wrong person. We all do sometimes. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't know she was her. I smiled faintly, brushing her hair back from her face. You couldn't have. That's what people like her do. They hide behind kindness until they find a way in. Emily nodded, her lips trembling. You still love Dad? I sighed. I don't know if love ever really disappears. But I stopped letting it hurt me a long time ago. A week later, Zoe transferred schools. Rumor had it she'd caused trouble with another student's family, though no one seemed to know the details. For months afterward, I'd catch myself wondering if she ever truly understood what she'd done. Not just to me, but to herself. Because no matter how far she ran, she always carried the weight of what she tried to destroy. As for Emily and me, we rebuilt. It took time. Dinners filled with awkward silence, then slow laughter again. One night, she hugged me from behind while I was cooking and whispered, I'm glad you didn't give up on me. I smiled through the tears I didn't want her to see. I never will. Now when I look back, I realize Zoe came into our lives like a storm, fierce, destructive, but temporary. And sometimes storms don't arrive to ruin us. They come to reveal what's strong enough to survive. I lost my marriage once because of her. But I refused to lose my daughter too. And in that quiet victory, not of revenge but of peace, I finally let the past rest. When I see Emily now, grown, kind, wiser than I ever was at her age, I think about how close I came to losing her trust forever. Not because of what I did, but because of what I stayed silent about. Silence protects no one. Sometimes the truth hurts less than the lies we tell to keep the peace. If you've ever had your past come back to knock on your door, you'll understand this. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to let the same wound cut you twice. So tell me, if the person who once destroyed your marriage came back, smiling, pretending to be your child's friend, would you have done what I did? Let me know in the comments. And if my story touched you, don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes, the quietest voices carry the loudest truths.